I do want to jump into the big deal from yesterday, being the
Well, I want to give you a
Ukraine-Russia
look at the main
talks.
sticking points in this. Putin
Let's
wants
get
Ukraine to
this
cede
over
all of the
here.
Donbas region, including areas under Ukrainian control. Trump has also told Zelensky.
It's crazy that Russia just gets to make these demands like they're not the aggressor and like they aren't the one who should be begging for mercy from the world stage, but they're still making demands because none of us have the balls to just step in and actually stop them. I mean, we can sanction the hell out of them, which we have, and that's great, but it clearly hasn't stopped them, and they are just trying to take over all of Ukraine and get rid of. If they, let's be real, if Ukraine gives up this much land, then in a few years, Russia's going to do the exact same thing, and they know they can do this. They know they can get away with this.
To drop the demand for Russia to return Crimea, which it illegally annexed in 2014. Now, Ukraine says it will not cede territory.
Right. Like we're just gonna give them, we're gonna give Russia Ukraine back, or we're gonna give, we're gonna let Russia keep Crimea and just not give it back to Ukraine, even though it was illegally annexed. And for that to just not even be on the table is crazy. It's just us saying, yes, you can go illegally annex whatever land you want, and then start a war of aggression and try to take more land. And if one of your demands is that you get to keep everything you take, and that's how you're going to get peace, then your war just worked. Like, it's not a negotiation. They just won.
And legally it can't under its constitution. President Zelensky says the
I believe what he's talking about there is the fact that Zelensky cannot, on his own, cede that land back. He would have to create an amendment to the Constitution and get some sort of approval. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's not something he can just sign away on his own. There is some governmental, bureaucratic stuff in the way.
current front lines could be the basis for a ceasefire while talks are held. Russia, however, has ruled out a ceasefire, saying fighting is only going to end with a comprehensive peace deal.
That's another strategy of Putin's. He says the fighting will only end because he just knows he can continue pressuring by creating more death and destruction and making it more and more untenable to continue fighting back, to continue pushing soldiers to the front lines. He knows that he's got the people to do it. I mean, this has been the Russian military strategy since the World Wars. It's just throw people into the meat grinder until the other side runs out of people. And the odds are pretty good that as long as you're Russia, you're not going to run out of soldiers before the other team does. And if he just says, well, we're not going to do a ceasefire, we're going to keep fighting and killing until there's a peace deal met that obviously gives him the things that he wants, he knows he can maintain that for a lot longer than Ukraine can. The pressure will only go up on Zelensky to give up everything that Putin is demanding, and Putin really won't face any internal or apparently any more external pressure. I mean, I don't know what we can do beyond sanctions at this point if no one's willing to actually get their military involved, and that could obviously be dangerous too. But I think we've proven that Russia's not quite as scary as we thought they were before this. They really have not had the kind of success you would expect a military like we thought Russia's was to get so stuck on Ukraine and in regions that they have. So I don't think it's quite as scary as we thought before to end up intimidating Putin into escalating. But the problem remains that he has nuclear bombs. And he's a crazy person who's obsessed with himself and his legacy. So if he thinks the only way he can cement his legacy as a winner and a strong man and whatever is to just nuke a couple countries or wipe Ukraine off the map in a if we can't have it, nobody can style attack, I don't think that's totally unrealistic.
President Trump says Ukraine will not be allowed into NATO, one of Russia's key demands. Instead, it's going to receive security guarantees similar to NATO members. Ukraine says it needs clarity on how the guarantees are going to work. Hannah Shelest is the Security Studies Program Director at Ukrainian Prism. It's a foreign policy and security think tank. She's joining us from Odessa in Ukraine. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. I want to pick up on that point about Ukrainian's constitution. If I understand it correctly, President Zelensky does not have the legal right to be able to cede control. It's down to the constitution, which says there has to be a referendum if the country is going to cede away any territory. How difficult is that going to make it for President Zelensky when it comes to these talks?
First of all, yes, it's not only constitution of Ukraine, but that's also the recognition by the Russian Federation, at least in 3 international treaties, the borders of Ukraine, the bilateral treaties, the treaties
That's right. That's what it is.
after that being signed. So we, for those that collapsed, for example, the Soviet Union, so the Russian Federation itself recognized Ukrainian borders. And to change...
Flown to Washington, D.C. to support Zelensky. It's also crazy to me that these European leaders saw how poorly Zelensky was treated last time he was here, last time he was at the White House and talking to Trump, and they're just like, okay, maybe we need to go back him up. The idea that our president is such a pain in the ass to work with and such an abusive, narcissistic asshole to the people who he interacts with on the world stage, that they know they need the power of numbers to go and basically prevent him from bullying them. It's crazy.
Change Ukrainian constitution is very difficult process. It's not only the referendum when we speak about the territorial integrity. That's also quite a long process through the courts, through the parliament, through other procedures. So de facto, any changes can take up to 2 years if to follow all the procedures. And Ukraine is a democratic state. We are following the procedures according to the rule of law. So for the President Zelensky, I can't say that it would be difficult. That would be easy to stand in this position because the population of Ukraine completely supports him. Why we need to give up the territories that Russians even never occupied. And here...
Right. Also, they're demanding land that people probably currently live on, first off, and that they have not won. Like, this would not even be like a, okay, everybody just keeps what they've currently won and walks the other way. Like, they're asking him to give them things that haven't even been occupied.
Just 2 numbers. Since November 2022, Russia managed to occupy only 1% of the territory of Ukraine. And till now, after 11 years of aggression in Donbass, Russia occupied 75% of the Donetsk region. So even after 11 years of warfare, they were not able to occupy one region in full. In this case...
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, about how we expected Russia to basically just roll over these guys, and I think Russia probably expected that too. The Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian army have shown an absurd amount of strength, an absurd amount of resistance in the face of a much, much larger enemy, and it's incredible that the ingenuity with which these drone attacks are being carried out, just all the ways they're defending themselves against this much, much larger enemy is really, really impressive. And I think that Russia and Putin are rightly a little bit scared and a little bit concerned that they would need to sacrifice a ton more soldiers to finish occupying just this one region that they've been trying to move on this whole time.
Is it concessions? Is it a compromise that is proposed to Ukraine, or just a pure surrender and gift to the Russian president?
Right. It's not a compromise at all. It's just a surrender. We're like, hey, please, please stop the war. In exchange, we'll give you everything you've already taken, the stuff you took 10 years ago, and some stuff that you haven't taken yet, if you just please stop. Like, that's such a reward for this gross aggression.
So in this case, the negotiations in Washington definitely will be difficult because we need to change this paradigm of conversation. Who is compromising, who is gifted during these negotiations.
And that's part of the difficulty, isn't it? We don't have a lot of details about what it might be discussed at the meetings this afternoon, but from the outside, it seems as though President Trump and President Putin seem to think that in order to stop the war...
I feel like right-wing people just like flock to Al Jazeera comment sections because they know they can trigger people. And I guess it works because it pisses me off constantly.
And essentially has to give Russia everything that Russia wants. Is there anything on the table, from what we know so far, that Ukraine might be able to agree to?
First of all, definitely we don't know all details. So we understand that the negotiations didn't went as expected, according to the moods during the press conference and the statements. However, the statements of the White House afterwards and those who were at the negotiations were not that much positive. And that's one of the reasons why the European partners are joining Ukraine today in Washington, because they need to explain that the Russian president was manipulating with the US president de facto, that he understood that Donald Trump would like deal, not peace. So the deal, the quick deal, is more important for him than the long-term consequences of what can be in this deal. And also that all these agreements are not just about Ukraine. They're about the whole Europe.
Right. Donald Trump just wants to be able to say he accomplished something and show it off on a world stage. And as he's said a million times, he thinks he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. So he really just wants something that he can show changed immediately. And that's kind of been his whole MO this whole time. It's just show action, regardless of the quality of it or what you're doing. It's just be as active as possible. Have as many changes to your credit as possible. Seems to be the strategy, and he's clearly not. We know for a fact that President Trump doesn't care about saving lives and certainly doesn't care about Ukrainian lives. He just wants to cement his legacy here. So he's going to act in service of that. He's not trying to create a deal that is going to make a long-standing peace or that is going to convince Russia that they can't just behave this way on the world stage. He's just trying to do something that he can say, look, I did that. I stopped the war. And then if it starts again in 2028 or 2029, whatever, when someone else is in office, God, I hope somebody else is in office. If Putin just goes back and attacks you, and you can say, "See, look how weak that person is. We should have just kept me for another term. I should have gotten another term anyway. Let's revisit that." I mean, it's so transparent.
And, Russia felt the blood. Why they need to stop? They haven't stopped after Transnistria, after Abkhazia, after Ossetia, already breaking the sovereignty of two other states. So now with Ukraine, who said that the next country cannot be the EU or NATO member state?
I was just reading that in 2010, in the presidential election in Ukraine then, about 90% of voters in the Donbass region backed Viktor Yanukovych, who was a pro-Russian candidate. How do people in the Donbass region, given the fact that it seems to be a focus for these talks, feel about what could happen to their region?
First of all, I would disagree that the people of Donbass was pro-Russian or that the President Yanukovych at that time in 2010 was pro-Russian. He definitely had good relations with the Russian Federation. He was afraid of the
That was in 2010.
Union integration because his regime was very corrupted. But at the same time, he's the guy whose signature is on our application to the NATO membership back in 2005. He's the guy who started negotiations for the European Union membership. And only after pressure from Putin in 2013, he rejected signing the association agreement in Vilnius. But if you look to the decisions and signatures that he put from 2005 to 2013, he made a lot of those first steps towards the NATO and EU integration. It was more about corruption, it was more about the surrounding, and it was more about the money from Russia. And
that's super unsurprising, given that she's saying he refused to sign the papers in 2013, and then Russia annexed Crimea in 2014.
Pressure from the Russian president that made him to change position in 2012, 2013.
Hannah Shellis, we appreciate it. Hannah Shellis is Security Studies Program Director at the Ukrainian Prison. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh.
Don't miss out.
Okay. So that was, I think that's all I'm going to do on Ukraine, Russia. It's kind of all we got. I didn't see anything. I'm going through my news notes over here right now. Yeah, I didn't see anything that had come out yet today about any updates, and that was the most recent video, or the latest released video from last night. So I think that's all I'm going to have on them today. There was one more, actually. It was right after that. It said, optimism grows in Russia as diplomatic efforts raise hopes for a peace agreement. And there was just one thing that stuck out to me in here, so we'll do it pretty quick.
63-year-old Dmitry lives a retired life in his farmhouse outside Moscow. He wasn't a soldier, but volunteered to fight with Russia's paramilitary group Wagner, spending more than 2 years on the Ukrainian front. He doesn't like to be...
We hope that they will be able to end this bloody war and bring everyone home. It is a shame that there are so many victims of this war. Any war is terrible, but when it is for the truth, it is necessary.
That's the crazy part. Russia still, thinks it's justified in this war.
His government insists the war is necessary and an existential threat.
And B, thinks they are under existential threat. Like, from Ukraine? It's crazy. It's the same crap that Donald Trump is doing here. They just make up an enemy and then militarize the hell out of whatever city or area they need to in order to attack that enemy. Unfortunately for us, Donald Trump is using that military to attack his enemies inside the country, not to justify what Vladimir Putin's doing, but he's not he's not invading Russia himself, I guess.